we cut a hole here that joins to a hole there, which creates the valley between it, then you're bypassing this part and going from here into there. That's in its simplest form. And so I call it tunnel technique because it creates an extra tunnel every time you create a hole. Tunnel technique is really, it's not about just doing one thing, it's knowing the technique and then trying to push the possibilities of what can you do next, where can you push it next, and that takes some independence on your part now to think of a new problem to solve. Do it again, do it again, do it again. Every time you do it again, you can do it differently. And so, the very first, you started with my garment as a starting point, my pattern piece. And so for the next one you do, you're going to be creating your own starting point. This is just a test, okay? So I'm going to say, this is so that you know the parameters. So if I touch you there, you go as high up the page as you can. Okay, so that's the top of the page. Okay. So make a mark there. So if I do that, what you feel, what's this feel like? Okay, and then what does this feel like? This is the bottom of the page. Okay, and then this is that side. Okay, and this is the far over there. And then this is... So now you know the kind of parameters. Okay? If you can step that way slightly because I'm looking over there. Okay, so this is just a test. So if I do that and that, I'm going to keep going over it. What do you think I'm doing? That's it. I'm going to stop at that point. Okay. I think that's interesting enough. Once you've got your 2 of these trouser legs, so you have 2 of these each, I also want you to make a painted one. Now a painted one, we'll need to put it onto a big piece of paper, or if you wish you can do it straight onto cloth. And with that I want you to take a starting point at the top of the, if this is a piece of paper that's maybe going, it depends on the width of the fabric. If the width of the fabric is at least 130 to 150, then that's fine. Otherwise we're going to have to do it lengthwise. But if you were to just simply take a starting point up here that's 70, and a starting point down here that's 70, then anything you do in between from here to here is up to you, that you paint. Any shape, any line that you want to make, you can do it just a very smooth curve, or you can do it in and out a bit. You can also shift these backwards and forwards if you want, so you can have like 70 between here and here, and 70 between here and here, and then we do a, okay? Yeah. Whatever shape you like, but as long as it's 70 at the top and 70 at the bottom, that will allow us to wrap it around and make a very unusual shaped tube. The length of this and the length of that might be different, in which case there may be times where we have to put in some pleats to make them match. Similarly, when you put a trouser on that's a slightly unusual leg, it makes you kind of move about, which is why this is, when I was testing these trousers out, I was jumping around in them, because they had that feeling that you wanted to sort of like jump around in it. And so I put it to this piece of music, Michael Jackson, I Can't Control My Feet. Because I like this idea that these trousers were perhaps dangerous, that I had to take them off because otherwise I was going to kind of collapse with exhaustion from wearing them. These trousers are just for like walking around slowly, yeah? Just for people that, you know, I don't need to rush, you know, I'm just in my slow snail trouser. So I like this idea there's a connection always between the cutting of a trouser for the legs and the movement that you do with it, because legs are so dynamic. But I now have a paper pattern, and if you have a paper pattern, then you have production. You have the ability to remake it many, many times. Remake it in different kinds of fabrics. Each change will make a big difference. But the important thing was then to retoile it. When you retoile it, you then begin to see it. This was the same pattern, the drawn one. Now it's become a much purer version because it's cut in just one piece. So although yours might look like that as a way of starting your pattern off, you might not finish it being that way. You might end up it being a much simpler item. It just depends how it's folded. But this gives you the possibility of trying out a shape that you wouldn't have thought of before. That's why I like the idea of using painting sometimes. It's not that I want to have painted trousers necessarily, sometimes I do, but often I don't. I just want that the painting process allows you to create a shape that you wouldn't have thought of if you were just using a ruler and a pencil. So it's not about being inaccurate or overly free and not carefree and not caring. Actually, you're just simply allowing yourself a moment of freedom to then make a shape which you then try on a person, get right, fit, connect, and then make a flat pattern, and then you take it one stage of evolution further into a much more refined version. So each step it gets better and better and better. So it's allowable to be really messy and crazy and free and painterly, and to then go in a more tighter, controlled, symmetrical direction. All of these ideas, how far you push it is up to you, but you don't have to. It doesn't have to go into the ridiculous if you don't want to. We want to do that at the beginning in these lessons, just so that we have that moment of freedom, of exploration. But we can always pull things back into a more wearable, more conservative, more simpler format if we want. I call it crazy legs just because I found trousers to be very conventional. And I found the way that we make them to be very conventional. So I just want to challenge that thinking. So by calling it crazy legs, it just means that it's a bit like saying if you make an ugly painting, there's no limits to it. You can go as bold and mad as you want. Whereas if you say a beautiful painting, then immediately there's many, many restrictions and worries about what other people think in relation to the definition of beauty. With crazy legs, it means there are no definitions. So let's make strange shapes for legs, but then let's make strange movements within them. So I'm trying to, in time, launch a little project where there'll be an online Crazy Legs course, which I'm sort of slowly developing. There will be people make unusual shapes for the leg, but they also take a picture of them making a strange shape in that trouser. And I want the connection between the two to be submitted. And then I'm going to award a prize, which will be the craziest trouser in the world award. So there'll be a cup that I'll make, and somebody will win the craziest trouser in the world. And so that's what I'm moving towards, because I want to try and challenge what a trouser is. But of course, not everything has to go into unwearable territories always. It's just that it's breaking you free from the conventions that you may be more ingrained in you as a trouser wearer, and also as a trouser maker. Because although I want people to sometimes not to measure, not to use tools and to be free, there are times when you have to be, and you have to go back to using more traditional methods. But having the space to sometimes have freedom and then to be more conventional, I think creates a nice rhythm between the two. Because not all garments can be made using subtraction cutting. If I'm making a tailored jacket, I want to use much more stricter tailoring, more traditional tailoring techniques. But it's nice to find a balance between the older traditions and the newer ways of working, so that the energy of cutting is continuing forward into the future. So thank you for letting me work with you and to be my guinea pigs, where I can experiment with you and throw ideas at you and make you do unusual things. But it's where you take it next will be very intriguing to see in the future as time goes by, as to how you might use some of these in real life.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.